Okay, well, welcome everybody. This is the September regular meeting for the Sandpoint Tree Committee. It's September 19th. Time is 8:34 a.m. Members present, I'm Bob Wilson. I'm chair of the committee. Rich Del Carlo is present. Bill Love present. Eileen Atkinson is present. Molly McCann is not here. Sharon Lewis and Gail Lister are not present. Are there any general announcements before we get into our items? Okay. The minutes from the prior meeting, has everyone had a chance to look at those? And are there any corrections, additions, changes? If not, could I have a motion to approve the minutes as written?
So moved. Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes as written? Say aye. Opposed? Okay, the motion carries unanimously.
Oh, real quick.
Oh,
Sorry
go
to
ahead.
interrupt you. We probably should talk about when everyone's here again, but Cami, for purposes of taking meeting minutes, she's asked that we do a roll call when we vote going forward. So just a reminder that she's
Yeah,
having difficulty keeping up because when we vote, she doesn't know who said what.
okay.
So for the future when we vote.
If there is a if the vote is unanimous, is that necessary?
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So what I would like to do on that is if it's unanimous, we'll just leave it at that. If we have some aye and nay votes, then we would call for roll call and go through the membership as is, if that works for everyone.
The only time that comes into play is if there happens to be someone who wants to abstain for some reason. So those would be the only things that you would ask would be whether or not anyone is
All right.
abstaining. And the only
Okay.
time I could see with this group that might happen is if someone wasn't present and they didn't feel comfortable approving minutes at a meeting where they weren't present. And so then she would need to make a note of who actually abstained from voting, and she wouldn't hear that just with a voice vote.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
We did a little bit of training that Cami attended, and she just really liked the idea of that roll call vote. It's not required. In some instances, it's required for council, for instance. For committees, generally it isn't, but she just liked the idea of it because it allows her to hear everyone's vote. So that's why she asked us to mention it. When she left, she made a note and asked if we'd mention it during the meeting.
Okay.
That might be a possibility going forward.
Yes.
Well, and then that would clarify for those that are attending remotely and things like that, and so any possible confusion. Yeah, otherwise, I would agree with you, Bob, as we so seldom have anything other than a unanimous vote.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anything we can do to facilitate the process and ease, then I mean, we're certainly willing to do it. It's,
Absolutely makes it easier. Great,
Okay.
thank you.
Well, let's move on to our big item that we've been so eagerly awaiting is this urban forestry.
I know, well, so we have I've gotten two drafts, and the first one was missing a lot of data. So that's the one that I read a couple of weeks ago, and then we got the full one. And there, it just has all the appendixes and everything should be in it now. So I don't know if it's totally complete, but from what I was told, it was. So if you want, I just sent one to the printer for you, Rich.
Okay.
So, yeah, so we can grab that on your way out. And Bob, if you wanted a hard copy, we can send a second one to the printer.
Yeah.
But
But
anyone
we'll
that
be getting a electronic copy though.
you should have gotten it. It
Okay.
was in the invite.
yeah.
That's in the
I had a copy. I'm not sure if it was the first or second, I guess.
Oh, no, yeah, you would have gotten one just last week.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I would have to
These
check.
guys
to see.
have got it.
was
So-
an email from Cami.
Yeah.
And then, announcing the meeting.
Yeah.
And then it was an attachment.
I think that's the one I was looking at. I didn't realize it was a second draft.
It's only one.
Did it have
Everyone should have
all of
probably
the-
just gotten
the
one.
graphs on the
Yeah, it would
back
have
there
had
that-
all the
I got
survey.
the graphs.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very robust in all the responses and, okay.
Okay,
Okay, if you got that, then you got the right copy.
okay.
Yeah.
It was like,
Perfect.
yeah,
I don't
like 100 and
think
some
that
pages.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, then that would, yeah.
I don't
that
think I gave you the free version. I don't think I
Okay.
released that to anybody because it was missing so much information. It was missing the survey and it was missing a couple of other big things that,
Yeah,
yeah, the inventory was missing. And I was like, well, we need that.
would-
But I did review it because I had it in hand, so I kind of marked up the pages. So yeah, the big overview is, I think that it would be great if you have comments already. I wasn't expecting them already, but we can certainly go through them and we can take them now. And otherwise, I ask that October 12th, it would be great if you could get your comments in to me by October 12th, and then our next meeting is on October 17th. But that would give me some time to distill them, and if there's any patterns, red flags or anything, we can then talk about it at the meeting. So if you guys can all do that, that would be great. And I'll send out an email to everyone that's not here and just let them, remind them that the 12th it'd be great to send in your comments.
Okay.
And if you need to write them by hand and drop them off or take a photo, however you need to
Mhm.
get them to me, or if you want me to meet you somewhere and you give them to me, that's fine. Yeah, you can do it digitally, whatever works best. Or today we can talk about them. So,
Mhm.
so that was that, and it is quite a plus. And if anybody needs a copy, again, here you go. It hasn't gone, it's not going to the public quite yet. It will go to city council for final approval, and Jim will be presenting it probably remotely, but he's actually out of the country, he was saying. So we're a little bit behind in going to the public, but that's okay for us because,
Mhm.
or I shouldn't say it to the public, to city council, because it gives us more time to digest it. And as you know, I'm always backed up. So it's great. I have more time and Jennifer has more time to review. So
Mhm.
I think, a little bit of a delay is a good thing. And then we're aiming for November, to some point in November, to get it on the agenda for city council. So, yeah. And
Yeah, I
then,
mean, after, we've been kind of waiting for this for over a year now, and so I don't feel like we need to rush.
I don't
our
think we need
end
to
of it.
rush.
Yeah.
No, there's no real sense of urgency, other than we did have a deadline with city council where we said we would be done this
Yeah.
year. So
Mhm.
I would like to get it approved
Yeah, I
by
think we
city
can.
council by the end of December. So, yeah, so
The October meeting is the 17th.
it
Yeah.
is. Yep, yep. And Cammie's gonna be out for that too. She's out for about 6 weeks. So, yeah, Melissa's volunteering. Thank you so much to be here and to clerk. We're running on the skeleton crew. Yeah, so yeah, it would, again, if you can't get your comments in by the 12th, I'm not gonna hold you to it. We can talk about stuff on the 17th as well. I just typically will make a chart of stuff and then
Mhm.
we'll, somehow digest it and make sure that we get everything in there. And those comments are amongst myself and
Yes.
Jim and private. So, whatever you say, don't worry about it. I've also asked Garth to review, and he was saying, so he suggested that Matt, who is the community liaison at the state level, he works with community forestry, that he would be another good person to review it because he's familiar with all the programs throughout the state. So I think that's a pretty good thing. I haven't talked to Jennifer yet, so I just want to clarify with her before I let anybody else review outside of us.
Mhm.
So that's the only thing. Okay, so that's kind of that. And if you want, we can take a quick peek just to give you a little overview. Does anyone need a copy to look at right now?
Maybe we can wrap that up a copy, would that be helpful?
Oh, no, it's okay. Thanks. So it's page 13. It has our vision statement, and this was generated from feedback. I would really like you to take a look at that and make sure that we all agree with the vision statement. I'll read it to you right now, but think about it, maybe consider rewriting if you want, or if there's something missing, because this will be our guiding statement throughout. And then I would even recommend pulling that out and pulling it aside as you review the rest of the document. Just, it's a check and balance to make sure that that vision statement and the document go together. So Jim distilled this from all of his interviews and all of his research and everything. And so this is his best attempt at a vision statement, but again, it's open to being revised if we need it. So I'll read it to you. City of Sandpoint Urban Forestry Vision Statement. The City of Sandpoint recognizes urban forestry as an equal part of the community infrastructure. Will create, enhance, maintain, and sustain a vibrant, healthy, and structurally sound community forest resource for the benefit and enjoyment of Sandpoint residents and visitors. So the very first part of identifying the urban forest as an equal part of the community infrastructure those are the power words right there, because that's saying that now we are on the same level. The urban forest is on the same level as streets and sidewalks and pipes and everything else. That's a very, very powerful statement. So, just really want you to know, if we're going to say this and we're going to, take it to city council, we're making a case for this is what we're doing using this document. So being ready for that. It talks a little bit about health in here. To me, it seemed like it was maybe missing a little bit in that. Doesn't really talk about sustainability or anything like that. So, I haven't, again, read the whole document to see if there's more stuff that beefs that up. I suspect there is, but we'll be looking for the support for that vision statement. Let's see here. Then the other chapter, not really chapter, but the paragraph that I think is worth looking at is the economics of aesthetics. And that's on page 18 to 19. This is good. His graphics, I think we could get a higher resolution graphic. It's hard to read, but he talks about the value from an economic perspective. This is another one that, another meat one. This is where if someone wants to cut down a tree, this is where we've got meat. This is something that will probably impact our code and how we enforce. So,
And also the quality of the work.
Quality of the work, exactly. So we're making some strong statements here. Not that they're bad statements or anything. There's no opinion in this. It's just I want you to be cognizant that this is commitment, is what it is. Let's see here. Okay, and then
It's facts.
right, exactly. Let's see what else do I have. The strategies. So I'd be curious because you all are out in the industry. He put on page 37. He talks about different strategies for addressing infrastructure and reducing infrastructure damage. This is more of one where if you know of any other best management techniques for the sidewalks when the trees buckle, or for example, if we planted the wrong tree in the wrong place, what are some ways to address that? So I think this is a good one just to take a look at. You all might have stuff that's even better. I really like they talk about the wood chips in this as well, page 39. And I could see us moving in a direction where maybe we are using the leaves and doing a mulching program. So I think this could lead to some policy changes, and it would be really exciting to see what that looks like.
And I think that the sidewalk thing, I mean, that's really the biggest ongoing issue.
Yes,
The
absolutely.
impact that sidewalks have on trees, and thinking about it's a perfect example right across the street here. I remember when we had the meeting in the other room, we would marvel at those trees over there. And then they remodeled that house and have put new sidewalks in, and now those trees are in decline. So I mean, there's just like these glaring examples of. So I hope that I haven't read all the sidewalk stuff yet, but I hope that is going to be a major player actually.
Where it plays in, the city, as you know, the first time they've had someone with my position, my skill set here, and they're also bringing me into reviews, but I'm getting triggered by the infrastructure development team. And so that's been exciting because, for the first time we're being brought on to that. Whereas other cities, they almost always have an arborist involved in construction and the city forester or a landscape architect. So I think it's giving us some leverage to be able to say, hey, we need to be reviewing these plans and we need to be part of the inspection process and
Yeah.
looking at that. And I want you to know the city's already doing that.
Good.
They've
that's
already
right.
got me on a couple of development projects, and I've been looking at those. And yeah, so it's pretty exciting to see that we as a city and a community are already doing that, moving in that direction. So this just reinforces it. But what this will do is help. We're probably going to be facing some code changes that will come out of this plan.
Mhm.
So I haven't fully digested all the goals, but we'll have to review those. Essentially, the way this process will work is we'll get all of your feedback, we'll digest it, we'll put it in, give it to Jim. And then as a committee and with the city, we're going to really have to look at the code and start comparing the two. And so we'll be doing that this winter and saying, okay, so
Mhm.
now, what does staff do? Which is basically myself and Jennifer, and fearlessly moving forward with, okay, what can we change, working with the planning department and modifying some things. So there's some good stuff in here. Page 45, there's a whole bunch of stuff about tree care and maintenance. If you would, I'm looking at you, Bob, because I know you're front and center with all of that. Actually, you all are. So front and center with the maintenance and just making sure that what he recommended is a good fit for maintenance for here. And if you have suggestions otherwise, I did talk at length with Garth on Friday about cabling and the nuances with cabling, and if we allow cabling and if they do cabling on city trees, you have to make sure that you have an agreement with the tree care professional that did the cabling. And if the city wants to go that way, we have to be really careful about that, because how are we going to monitor and manage that agreement? What does that look like? So that's another layer of administration. So yeah, just to be cognizant of that kind of stuff. I think the design objectives, it'll definitely be heavy on my side of things. That's it starts in the 50s, 55 is where I marked. That's for the most part going to be related to upcoming future construction. But before we get into any of that too deeply, I'd say let's look at what the best management practices are throughout the state and what other communities are doing, and just make sure that what was recommended to us by Jim is, again, in alignment for this particular climate and zone and all of that. The mulching seems to be a big one. I can tell immediate action right away. Maintenance needs to be putting, mulch rings around trees, because that's probably one of the biggest weaknesses. So it's going to change some things in maintenance, which is exciting. That's the idea of a master plan, is that results in action. Let's see here, and then in the back, and I suspect that these don't align perfectly, but page 79, he talks about risk management and mitigation program and the tree planting program. Yeah, we'll want to take a look at that a little bit
Mm-hmm.
closer. I should say on the risk management component, we talked earlier this year, a couple of meetings ago, we had some trees that were illegally cut down. I did an assessment. Jim did the assessment, official one. I wrote a memo that went to legal, and Jennifer has elevated that. So that's in legal right now. So we're not quite sure what the outcome is, but that's an example of mitigating some of the situations out there and then addressing them when things happen. So will that be our standard process and our procedure? I don't know, but I was sort of band-aiding until we got this. So when I'm reading this, I'm going to be looking at this for ordinances, processes, those types of things.
And will the city attorney be reviewing all of this as well?
I would imagine so. Yes, I would imagine so. Yeah, we have one attorney, particularly Andy. His background's in forestry. I mean, how lucky are we? Never in a million years would you ever have an attorney that has a background that. He actually did natural resources before in his first life. And yeah, he's been teamed up with me on quite a few things. With that, I've also been asked to weigh in on the comp plan, and there's a whole section on natural resources and hazards. So we met once this week and we're, you know, I just expressed that, you know, I need to get through this document and add that
Yeah.
before I can really make my feedback and my comments. So
Where's the city at in their comp plan planning?
they're just kicking off all the different chapter rewrites right now. So I think Amy Tweeton is our city planner, and the last time I met with her, I think was early last week or the week before, and she was just literally biting off a couple chapters at a time and then bringing the staff in as the technical experts. They did have public feedback, and I don't know if you recall, they started this process years ago. It's been ongoing for 2 years, and then it got kind of put on hold while they shifted and they had different planners, and maybe Melissa, you can even regurgitate better than I can the process, but it's been this ebb and flow, and now it's kind of in a stable situation is how I would describe it. And Amy is pulling together all the information that was done, but a lot of that was done before a lot of the changes happened. You know, we didn't have COVID and we didn't have an influx of development, and so the last 2 years have changed a lot around here, and we're seeing some changes. So she's taking it from there, and then she's bringing in the new staff, and we have a whole new staff. So, you know, that's another factor. So yeah, we're going chapter by chapter right now. I think she's hoping to get it done by midwinter. Last time I talked to her, and I don't know if she's still on that timeline, but yeah, on top of everything else, because you know she is the city planner, so she has a lot on her plate, and we're all helping her, but it's a big push. And she does have consultants working with her, and they were the consultants before, so that helps. There is some consistency with the consultants. So but picking up and making sure that we're doing the right thing. Yeah. Let's see here. Back to the plan. So there was a SWOT analysis done of our advice of you all. Yep, on page 83. I don't know if that's the same again. It's in the 80s. So yeah, y'all want to take a look at that?
Yeah, we definitely want to take a look at that, because I think that's the SWAT plan for Walla Walla, Washington, and not the SWAT plan for Sandpoint, Idaho.
Interesting.
The reason, let me pull the page, is in fact, it seems like there's a reference to Walla Walla in that
And I
document.
know that you
I-
know what? You are right.
Yeah.
You are totally right.
Yeah, when
That's
you
not
look
the
at
right
the
committee.
attendees of the
Yep.
Sandpoint Tree Committee, or Parks Advisory Committee.
So I know he did one of ours. He
Yeah.
just probably has the wrong sheet in there.
And, you know, yeah, that's on page 83.
Yeah.
Then there's a reference on page 8 in the front of the document about the SWOT analysis. And then he uses the term Sandpoint Parks, Arbor, and Recreation Board.
Okay.
And so there isn't and then elsewhere in the document, he calls it the Sandpoint Parks, Arbor, and Recreation Board, PAR.
Okay.
And so I think there's kind of a cut and paste and kind of
verify that.
missing some places there.
Yeah. That's a good catch.
Along a similar note, I noticed he referenced the Idaho DNRC, which is Department of Natural Resources, but that's Washington.
Yeah.
I think where he meant Idaho Department of Lands.
Lands, yeah.
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 So there's some.
Yeah, I'm getting the impression that he used the plan that he did for Walla Walla, and then cutting and pasting, and
Mhm.
in kind of a few places missed the.
And that's pretty
Yeah,
typical
yeah,
for
no,
master
that's very
plans.
typical.
Yeah. No, good catches. Yeah, we'll definitely want to check it for all of that kind of stuff. Yep. The only other thing I had was the landscape plant list, page 85. This tree list needs to match. We already have one.
We have a
So,
list. I think he was suggesting those as possible additions.
okay.
Although I think a few of them are already on our list, but and
So-
some of them are already planted in.
Yeah, I would definitely lean on you all for that.
But that would
because
be, yeah, I was
really-
grateful for that
Yeah,
information.
I was really curious about that one, and just making sure that whatever we do matches what we've already done. Yeah, so
And that list could probably be revised. given,
absolutely.
'cause
Yep.
there's so many more options that can narrow down into the growth habit in relation to the structures and stuff.
Yeah, and I do, I mean, I have to read this more to be able to speak to it, but the idea of planting trees, one tree every 25 feet, that works really great in a very urban setting. But when we're in these developments that are out further, I would be inclined to recommend more of a naturalistic grouping and a diversity of species, right, to match the existing landscape. So that's more in alignment with the best practices that I've seen coming out recently. So I want to be very clear where we make planting recommendations and what's the best place for it. And that goes back to the comp plan of, okay, in this zone, this works really well, downtown area, that works, but in other areas, we want to get back to something that's more in alignment with
Yeah,
an
for
ecological footprint.
sure.
So, yeah, but like I said, I have to dive into it. Jennifer has to dive into it. With that, I want to turn it over to you all and see if you had any questions, or do you just want to go around the room, or I'm open to.
I had a few notes I made here.
Great, okay.
I don't have a page number, but table 13.
Okay.
Underneath it, it said, it was talking about the financial needs, and it said assessments do not include staff, equipment, and administrative costs.
Oh,
And I'm like wondering, well, what do they include?
let's see, I think that's
I
a good point, Bob. I think that's on page, I want to say,
It's table 13, if you can find it.
Yeah,
I don't have the whole document here.
uh,
That's okay. I'll
is
just.
page 70, maybe 74 or so. That's the one that shows the table that,
And the numbers in it.
the numbers. Yeah, on page 74.
Okay.
Kind of the new document. Yeah, but an example of an urban forestry assessment based on property ownership. This does not include staff, equipment, and administrative costs. And the way I read that, and this was interesting to present it this way, is that using an industry standard, as I read this, a normal urban forestry budget is 0.4% of the overall city budget. And so then he makes the linkage here, annual, this is in the text above the table, the total annual budget in 2021 for Sandpoint was $24 million. If industry guidelines were applied to the 2021 budget, 0.4%, that would amount to $96,000. And so these figures provide an indication of where the urban forestry budget in Sandpoint is and how to compare it to industry guidelines in cities of similar size in the Northwest. And so the comparison he makes is, and this is very dramatic, is the current urban forestry expenditures in Sandpoint, a bunch of question marks, and then for a total of $5,000 spent on urban forestry. Whereas if he uses that adjusted industry guidelines for Sandpoint, and here's where he breaks it into the different categories: removal, tree abatement, tree pruning, and planting, then there's a number for each prorated number of those. But then according to that formula, Sandpoint should be spending $96,000 per year between removal, pruning, and planting. And yet someplace ambiguously, we're spending $5,000 for the overall program. And so to me, this is the most significant table, and the biggest argument to take to the city council is saying, look, here's sort of the industry standard. Here's what cities of comparable size and programs are spending. And here's a pretty tremendous shortfall. But then to get to your original point, Bob, the way I'm reading this is those numbers that are prorated by the 27,000 for abatement, 64,000 for pruning. That's the actual pruning cost. And so whether the city would contract with a contractor or city staff, one way or another, $64,000 needs to be with a pruning saw in hand. And that's not sort of the administrative, because elsewhere he's making a strong point that Sandpoint needs an urban forester. And so the way I interpret that is the urban forester then would be directing these budget, they would be paid separately. And then these amounts are, like I say, the pruning saw in hand or the shovel in hand to dig the hole or removing the hazard trees and things like
Okay.
that. Is that
I agree with you on that. I've skimmed this.
Yeah.
My big takeaway was that his numbers weren't accurate on our end, and that's why he had a
Yeah.
bunch of question marks. I think I
Right.
can tell you, we spend way more than
well,
5,000.
we have to.
Yeah, and I track my time, Cami tracks her time, so the admin side, but for the for the in-ground
Yeah.
actual amount, yeah, that's accurate. I have some funding and Austin has some funding, and it's more than 5,000, but
But,
you know, the ask for the best management practices amount, I bet that's pretty accurate. So yeah, we just need to verify all of that. Yeah, it's a strong case for sure, and it'll be great. And I personally love all that.
yeah.
That gives
well,
me
yeah,
some leverage to say,
absolutely.
hey,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
if we're especially going back to the vision statement, if the urban forest is considered infrastructure, critical infrastructure, and it's equal to all other
Yeah.
infrastructure, then yes, we need to be
Yeah.
funding it appropriately.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I
And
think
then
that's
you
great.
read down further, it talks about the crisis management, and that's basically where most things are, you don't react until there's an emergency. But the cost for that is way more than just having a general maintenance.
That's a good point that he makes there. Yeah.
Mhm.
And there's the chart or the table near the front of the document where he makes a comparison on tree ordinances by a number of cities in the Northwest. And kind of out of curiosity, and I'm not asking Jim, I'll go back and do some more work, but out of curiosity, the city that I think would be very comparable to the Sandpoint or two or three cities, one would be Moscow. Kind of size-wise, it's about the same, but they have a very robust urban and community forestry program. And I would like to, partly because of the influence of Jim Fazio from the University of Idaho professor and others, in the town, and to see what their, cost and what their ordinance, contains. Another would be like Whitefish, Montana. That would be probably more comparable size-wise than the recreation-based town and things like that. But again, not asking Jim to go back and
but maybe
redo those. Yeah. But I would be curious that a town like Coeur d'Alene or Moscow, what is their actual on the ground expenses for tree maintenance, planting, and removal.
Mr. Chairman, we do not have a quorum currently. We need to pause the meeting.
Okay, just a couple other things I wanted to mention. A lot of those charts were very hard to understand what was actually on
they're
in them.
pixelated. Yeah.
Well, no, not the pixelated, the verbiage on them didn't tell me what they were actually looking at. Some of them were very, very strange. I thought it should include the number of surveys received. I didn't see that information
Oh, okay.
anywhere. At the start on page 84, they had these public survey results. It didn't say how many results that was based on. Page 85, one of them said, it says, think trees are important. And the categories were not as important, equally important, more important, but didn't say more important than what. I didn't know what they were. So
I think it was incomplete.
yeah, one of them said, what is tree knowledge rate? I have no idea what he's talking about.
Needs to put the
What's-
rest of the question in there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I think you should go through all of those and add, preferably add the full context of the question that was posed to the survey responders.
Yeah, and
because I didn't know what half of them meant.
Right, and what I was in reading that and noticing that the same thing is that maybe either have the survey before the charts. And so then when you get the maybe question one would be slide number one, and so you'd read, do you think that the Sandpoint trees are important? And so then you could use some of the short abbreviations on the
Yeah,
because
Yeah.
it might really kind of, muddy up the slide to have a full question or something.
right.
But we do need to have something to reference what the full question was. And kind of the thing I noticed on some of those that had numbers, the importance of such and such, 1 being most important and 5 being maybe least important. Well, then when you look at the pie chart, there's maybe number 1 and number 4, but then so if you look at it and study it, oh, okay, well, this one must be, those that responded number 2 for importance, these are number 3 and number 4 or something.
I do have to clarify that we pulled the data. We have a GIS person who just pulled everything and made those charts. And he created this thing called the dashboard. And then I think Jim just put that right in instead of merging the two. So yeah, I'll make
Yeah,
sure.
this
that's
needs more
cleaned up.
context there.
Yeah, I'll get that cleaned up.
All right.
I didn't get a good sense, and I have to dive into the appendix some more. I didn't feel like the commentary because he interviewed quite a few of all of our maintenance on both sides of streets and on parks, and then interviewed all of you. We did public input. I'd like to see some deductions from that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Get some more information.
But I mean, I think you did overall a good job. I'm glad that to see so much background information that really supports the need for the changes that he sees, and I think we see as well. So I'm hopeful that we can draw on a lot of that information as we move forward to try to make our case for more funding and hopefully get an arborist on staff at some point. I know these are kind of long-term goals, but
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
Yeah,
glad to see a lot of that in there.
great. So I guess, do you guys have any other questions about the process of this? So I think this is a great way going through, noting those pages, and yeah, if you can try to get your comments to me by the 12th of October. I will be gone all next week, completely off the grid on a river trip. I'm so excited. So no cell phones, nothing. Thank you. So I'm really looking forward to that. But so don't even bother trying to talk to me next week. But otherwise, if you have questions, let me know, or need some clarification on anything. Yeah, and then I will digest everything, and we can talk about it again at the next meeting. And then from there on out, all the information will go back to Jim. And I imagine we'll have a final 2.0.
That sounds great.
Yeah, and then
So what
we'll
about
go to
our
vote.
missing numbers?
They've
won't-
gotten everything digitally.
Yeah,
If
but
they
all
want,
of our discussion this morning, which
Yeah,
helps me a lot.
I will send them. Well, we'll have the meeting minutes, and we can send the
That's
meeting
right.
minutes out, and I can send them an email and
Great.
just let them know, the 12th is the goal.
Yeah.
I mean, that's over. It's about just shy of a month, 3 weeks. So
And Mr. Chairman, the video, the YouTube video will be posted.
Right.
I'll post that this afternoon.
Okay.
yeah,
So they could
Okay.
watch the entire meeting,
Yeah.
listen to the entire meeting.
Thank you.
okay. So
Okay, we're ready to move on to our new business.
Yes.
Yeah, what have we got going on at the county's cafe? There's that
yeah, so
supposedly a historic tree, but I don't know that we have that
that's exactly it.
designation on that.
So we have a great update. I think I talked about this a few meetings ago with you. We had, so I have a lot more clarity now. There's 2 owners or the partners of Connie's Cafe, and they don't own the property. Then the hotel actually owns Connie's Cafe's property. They need to do some repairs to the deck in the back, and the tree has outgrown the deck and it's also hitting the gutters, or vice versa, however you want to think about it. So they need to do some repairs to the building. The one owner contacted me and asked, he thought that it was a historical tree. And a lot of the community members had told him that it was. The tree in question is on the south side of the building, and it's a pin oak, pine
Yeah,
oak,
it's
pin oak.
Yeah.
I got called in to look at it, and I didn't know if it was in the right of way at the time, and I was doing a bunch of other inspections at this in the same area. So I had Garth with me, so we just went and looked at it.
Yeah.
And so Garth was able to give him an assessment. So the assessment is that the tree's in good condition, definitely can use some pruning, but otherwise it's in good health, and there was no risk at all for a hazard. So remember, when Garth does our inspections, it's only for hazard. And he doesn't make recommendations if the trees should come down. He just points to the facts. And so I shared that with the partner who had contacted me. And in addition, I went down the rabbit hole of exploring historic heritage trees. And we discovered that there was a code way back, I want to say 2003, that it pointed to if we want to have a tree designated as a historical or heritage tree, the tree committee can make the recommendation that then goes to the arts. At the time, it was the historical preservation committee. So basically you can make a recommendation and that committee has to review it. Well, the committees have changed since then. And now that committee is, correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa, the Arts, Culture and Historical Preservation Committee. And that's now been reestablished. And my coworker, Heather Upton, is the staff person working with them. So Heather and I talked at length about if this is something we wanted to pursue for this tree. But then we looked at all the other documents that had since come in since that code was written. And after that code came the tree manual, then came another code. And so it seemed to me that the best case we should not, I don't think, is to go through all those layers and try to make a big stink about this right now. The first step that I came to the conclusion of was, let's just talk to the property manager, the whatever he is, the partner, sorry, and let them know, like, hey, this we could push this, but we think it's of value, but it's on private property. Just give him the facts. And so I did, and I wrote him a letter about it and also sent him some information on the value of trees to restaurants and economic, the economic part of it all. And he was very happy with that. He doesn't want to cut down the tree. So we had a great conversation about that. And so I think we're after the end of the day was he's trying to get the facts as to why he should keep the tree, why they should invest in modifying their deck and the gutters. And he was pitching a case to his partner and to the property owner. That doesn't mean that in the future, somebody couldn't bring that forward. Now, the people that can bring that forward could be the private landowner or the tree committee can make those recommendations. But I think without the urban forest plan in place, it might be a battle. And we don't really have staff capacity right now to pursue the heritage or historical trees right now. So I didn't want to go down that if we didn't need to.
I don't think we have a strong framework to base naming
Right.
something a historical tree.
Right, not
Well,
right.
we spent time several years ago,
Yeah.
and then, developing a format.
Mhm.
But then it seems like, it just kind of lingered at that point.
Yeah,
You need staffing changes within the city.
Correct.
and
And
things like
there's so many moving pieces at the city. And so we're in this exciting time where we just revamped this other commission. We also are looking, we're going to be doing a design competition for the downtown area. It's going to be on this next city council agenda for this Wednesday. So you can hear about it if you're interested. I think that we might realize some of these historical overlays and such out of that design competition. It's probably going to go on for several months. And I just think kind of we're in this change status right now. And I just think let all the pieces fall. And then if it seems like we need to revisit that, and I do think we need to revisit that because there's no old code out there and a process, then I think we'll revisit that after we get this plan, we get the comp plan, and And then we'll see where that design competition, where that lands, because they're going to be heavily engaged with the values of the community in regards to historical preservation goes. So that's my recommendation. But I wanted to update you all because at the end of the day, the bottom line is that the partner doesn't want to cut down the tree.
Yeah.
So through a lot of this investigation, we solved it, I think, for now.
And
So
this tree, I don't know if you're familiar with it. I mean, it's, you know, it's a really nice tree, but it's growing in these really great conditions. It's not an old tree. I think it's growing very fast. It's a healthy tree,
probably gets watered all
but
the
it has,
time.
yeah, I mean, but it doesn't really have historical significance, you know, I mean, but I mean, it's great that they have this interest and this wanting to care and do the
Yeah.
right thing. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
If you cut it now, it'll never have future historical significance.
That's
But
true.
no, and Bob, you know, those pin oaks at the US Bank and that
Yeah.
basically.
oh, yeah,
up
right,
together.
right.
I mean, those things are just, they grow fast and pretty healthy and
They
everything.
want to
So,
do, because you worked on ours as much as you could. It just has a shape that it wants.
Yeah, and it
Mhm.
wants to go way out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
Anyway, Maeve, I think you did a great job on that. That's
Yeah.
on how you handled that. 'Cause I don't think we want to go down the historical tree rabbit hole, but providing them the information and encouragement to save that tree, I think is the best. I think that's sort of the limit of what we want to do at this point. So,
So it felt like it was a win-win
yeah.
and I learned a lot.
Yeah, we did too.
for sure.
Yeah.
and it's always good to start the conversation is, we want to keep this tree.
Yeah.
Well, I want to keep it too.
Absolutely.
So now, now let's, now we
Absolutely.
can agree on.
Yeah,
Another
so, and you never know because he didn't start out that way.
Yeah.
You know, we had to get there.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, good. So, guess you got the next one too, so the Schweinitziai rot on Lakeview Park trees.
Yes, so this is another one, both Garth and also Jim have looked at this. The city did pay for Jim to do a full assessment of the trees at a couple different parks and the Lakeview one. So there's one tree in particular that has pretty significant, it's a Douglas fir and it's located near the storage shed in the Arboretum. And they're saying it has laminated root rot at the base of the tree. So this is what it looks like. I can email you the report too, but
Yeah.
Can you
Um,
look at that picture?
yeah, absolutely. Sorry, it worked out. And I can
Oh,
hardly
okay. So
straighten my arm.
the fungus are the indicator.
Mhm. So the biggest takeaway is there's one that it looks like it may need to be removed, but the recommendation is to monitor it. I'm going to be putting out an
Is that root rot, Bob? Sorry.
an RFQ for, let me just see this, for some tree work, some maintenance work, pruning in conjunction with Austin. He has a list and we've got some trees in Lakeview Park, Farman Park, and some in the right of way, particularly on the south side of Oak Street and 3rd. And we have a couple maples along Euclid that are dying from sidewalk construction. So we've got some work to do this fall. So I'm working with Austin on that one. But for this one, the recommendation by everyone is to essentially watch the tree, monitor it. So what I'm going to do is actually, I could say, let's monitor it, or we can put it on a calendar. So I'm going to put it on a calendar and put it on everyone's schedules that in 6 months, every 6 months, we're going to regularly monitor this tree. It may be that from talking to Jim and Garth, it may be that we remove the most significant one and hope that it doesn't spread. Unfortunately, my understanding is that because of the drainage there, it's a lot of standing water a lot of the time. And they said that it will eventually, if we can't get the drainage to be a little bit better, there's a good chance it will move through there.
So when you say watch, are they going to come back and review this or
Yeah.
what? Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'll put it on my calendar to trigger the consulting arborist.
Yeah.
And I say Garth, but he might not always be the consulting one. So just to make sure that every 6 months we have an arborist go and look at it and just keep an eye
Mhm.
on it. Yeah, they really just said monitor. We do have a Douglas fir that's in the southwest area of that park, and that does need to be removed. I'll read to you what he wrote. Let's see here. Another Douglas fir is in the southwest area of the park. It has declined significantly and should be removed. The other Douglas fir trees contain various amounts of dead branches in their crowns. These should be pruned to remove the dead branches. All Douglas fir trees in Lakeview should be monitored for symptoms of crown decline and wood decay caused by laminate root and armarilla root.
Malaria.
Is that right?
Malaria.
So the tree that needs to be removed is also near the parking lot and the shed. Here's the parking lot, here's the museum, and it's just right in there. So they actually, the Arboretum brought that to my attention. And while I'm on the topic of tree maintenance, do you mind if
Go ahead.
I continue on with that? Travers, as you know, the Travers Park is coming on board, and we do have a structure that's going to be built. We will be removing the trees where the building will go, and the building, I'll be able to disclose that to you. We're going to be public with that at the October 5th City Council meeting. So we're really close, but I had Garth go out with me, and Garth and I are going to be doing the tree inventory and noting the trees that we want to protect. And it looks like there's really just one that we really that we think is of value to try and protect. The rest of them, just based on our conversation on Friday, it didn't seem like there wasn't any. I mean, they're all of value, but one oak in particular was in really great condition. The other ones had varying degrees of, I'd say, wear and tear. And he said that, they have to go, they would ultimately have to be removed in the long run, but that they weren't high value. So
Those are relatively new trees.
Yeah,
right?
Yep. And goes back to our maintenance. We weed whack our trees. And so we weaken them, during that process. So, we have to go back and look at some of those procedures, but I think you'll be really pleased with the new building plan and the landscape. We do have a landscape architect on the team. Terrell Williams is the firm out of Spokane, and the plan is a very ecologically sound one. And they're going with more of a native plantscape, and that was something I'd asked for in the scope for Travers. And so the trees are actually going to be planted in a scheme that's similar to what you see in the natural setting. So diverse plantings, lower maintenance, and they'll be in protected beds instead of out on their own in the field. So, and then they'll also be that we're going to reveal the creek that was there. So historically there was a drainage that went through that site, and that's going to come through, and that's going to be the connecting element that flows through to the skate park. And so when you see this, I can talk all day, but when you see the plans, you'll understand what I mean. But it's basically going to look like the stream is flowing through. And what that means is that we'll be using the natural drainage patterns to help the landscape, and it'll just be such a healthier site. And the project's robust. So I'm telling you all now, when this comes on board in October, it's going to be, we're going to have to make some changes out there in order to accommodate the proper parking lot capacity and everything. And then the fields are going to get redone. We have multiple phases for Travers Park coming on board. So I'm in phase 1 right now, and we're already designing for phase 2 so that we can start applying for grants. But the trees will be impacted in all cases, but we will also come back in and replant, and we'll be planting a substantial amount more than what is already there. So that's part of it. But again, I think, we're gonna win some and we're gonna lose some.
Yeah.
I think the wins will be really, I think the community will like that. And I'm already, like I said, I've got specs and everything. And this gentleman named Jeff, I can't think of his last name. He's the arborist for Spokane. He came down as well. They had a meeting with Ponderay on Friday, and then a meeting with me. And we went and looked at Travers. So it was really great to hear what Spokane does and understand their recommendations and how they do it. So yeah, I'm getting in front of it as fast as I can, and I'll keep you apprised. So I think the next meeting, our next meeting is October 17th. So I should be able to get you. Yeah, we will be public with Traverse by then, pending any craziness.
I have a question about the, you were saying that, Austin and his staff are gonna be doing some pruning.
No, not his staff.
Oh.
We're gonna put an RFQ out. Austin just provided me with the trees that he
Oh,
needed
okay.
maintenance on.
Okay, yeah.
They do their fall course. Is that something you teach? I can't remember who taught that. Maybe it was Garth.
No, I didn't teach.
Okay, I think maybe it was Garth. But he did say, Austin said he wanted to do that again this fall. I need to touch base with them on that.
Mhm.
Yeah, they
Well,
do.
That's an important part of the management plan, to emphasize several places is proper training for,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, whether it's city staff
Yeah.
or an arborist, that, it makes a strong endorsement for certified arborists to do the planning. And it's at the point where there should probably be a certified arborist over
Yes.
city staff.
And I put that into my ask. I don't know if I've told you guys we are evaluating, because of Travers, we needed to reevaluate our operations for the Parks Division, because when we bring that facility on, it's a substantial facility. And so we hired a company called Barry Dunn. Barry Dunn is the big company. They purchased a company called Greenplay. Greenplay was the company that did our master plan, and they were the operations management advisors to the master plan for the parks master plan. So they got bought by Barry Dunn. So long story, but we hired Barry Dunn, and they are looking at our entire parks and recreation and open space division. So they're looking at how we operate, how we need to operate in the future. They are looking at maintenance. They're looking at where all of our facilities are, where our offices are. So I think what you're going to see is a complete makeover of our team and how we operate to be efficient and to be sustainable for the long haul. So, while we're doing all these glamorous projects, we're also doing the work in the background, so we don't get blindsided when we open them up and we're short-staffed and, not functioning well. So the idea is that facility is supposed to be done at the end of next year, at the end of 2023. And we're currently on schedule for phase 1 of Travers, which will be the new building and the skate park expansion and all of that. But there's going to be multiple phases with it. But the gist is that we will have the operations team will be ready to take over at that time. And that does overlap with this as well. So all of this information from the urban forestry plan will go into that recommendation as well. So yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff happening. We're making some great change, and you guys have been in this for the long haul. So
Yeah,
thank
we
you.
have.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you all.
One other thing,
Yes,
'cause you had contacted me about that old U of I research property and the
yes,
development going on there.
yes.
And especially that, I guess that is it Sand Creek, where there's some rare, at least rare in Idaho.
Rare Christmas trees and
Well,
a
the
couple other things.
I'm not so sure about those, that rare Christmas trees business. I'm not sure that's
That was a good one.
legitimate.
That was the first time I've ever heard of a
Okay.
rare species Christmas. Yes, so to give you all a little update, I was asked, we have something called a PUD. It's a plan unit development proposal that came in for a portion of the old University of Idaho property. And that will be going to planning and zoning tomorrow. It's the first round of planning and zoning. So planning and zoning will have an opportunity to review the staff report. And I did write a robust staff report on my end that the key highlights were pulled out and provided to that team. And one of the things in my research that I found was back in 2017 when the city was considering purchasing that property, there was a public engagement component, and someone from the University of Idaho Forestry, I believe, had made comments, or no, it was from the nurseryman, the Christmas tree guy.
The Idaho Christmas tree,
Yes.
the Inland Empire Christmas tree.
Yes, that's it.
Association. Yeah.
They had written a letter, their president had written a letter, and that triggered me to call Bob and say, do you know anything about these trees that he's talking about? And the trees in question were a specific, unique not specific, a unique species of a Christmas tree.
It's cork bark,
I
so
think they were,
Cork bark fir, is that what they were?
where they, well,
grand and cork bark
yeah,
firs.
yeah.
Oh.
yeah.
So the developer had in their narrative cited that they had transplanted those trees, and I don't know if it was those specific, but the majority of the trees were supposedly saved on the site. I've done an informal inspection, and so there is some loss, but there's also some life, and I think they're going to see some of them saved, you know, that will make it. I had some questions about their maintenance. That was one of my big questions was, okay, so if you're planning to save these, where's the irrigation and things like that? It's now private property and it's not open for, I
Right.
can't tell them what to do, right?
Yeah.
Because it's private property. But we can commend them on what they've done and work with them. So I did try to honor what they're trying to do and offer assistance wherever possible. And then wherever this PUD lands, whatever they end up doing with their development, all the street trees I'll be reviewing and then making recommendations from that perspective. And that's my urban forestry hat. Then from the transportation side, I'm making recommendations for connectivity and, you know, safety and sight lines and where they have open space and parkland or designated open space for their residents. And connectivity. They do have a strong desire to connect from Boyer all the way to Sand Creek with a big swath of open space. So yeah, I made recommendations about their various open spaces and stuff like that. So I learned a lot. I've been learning. It's a learning like this, you know, straight up learning curve of how to get our values that were identified in our various master plans into these kind of planning documents, and where the overlap is with, you know, where can I speak up and have some teeth in the game, and anything that overlaps our right of way or impacts the public is where I can basically, if it's on their private property, they can do whatever they want for the most part. But we're in this public comment period, so I do encourage anyone to pay attention and you know, watch what's happening at the planning and zoning meetings. They're also available live. You can get the Zoom link also from Melissa, and there will be one tomorrow. So, and that's where we will be reviewing this property, and there'll be a public hearing. So, and yeah, that's, and thank you.
There'll be a public hearing at what point?
Tomorrow.
Oh, that's tomorrow.
There's going to be a couple opportunities. So one of the big things for that one was they didn't provide a landscape plan. So one of our comments is, can we see your plan? You need to do that next. So yeah, they still have, the developer has, they've just given a concept and a narrative. So based on a concept and a narrative, I had to make the recommendations on that and kind of have to go back to the foundation and say, okay, where's your plan? So
Right.
yeah.
And
All
those,
right. Thank you, Maeve.
You probably remember too, Bob, the progeny test was between the Christmas Tree Association and U of I for grand fir and then the cork bark fir, and they were monitoring kind of the long-term growth of those. But I think it's pretty much a moot point. They'll probably look at private property, but then you know
Yeah, well, Dan Barney was conducting that research, and he's not here anymore, so
that's right.
so there's nothing to carry that whole thing forward.
They did identify the Kinnickinnick Plant Society also identified some native species that were growing more along the Sand Creek. I didn't think the property that was in existence for the development was impacting what they were referencing though, but they mentioned things like high bush cranberry and stuff like that, some species that I thought would be great if they were able to be kept, but again, they were closer to the creek and along the bank, so there's no development along the bank. So, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to leave.
No, I
that's
think
gonna
we're-
probably adjourn the meeting then.
I think unless,
that's
is there
it.
anything else we want to bring up at this point? I think we. Thank you, Maeve, for kind of carrying the meeting for us this time. If there's no further business, let's see, our next meeting will be Monday, October 17th. And guess being no further business, I adjourn this meeting at 9:40.
Great.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.